Our marker is located outside of the 1501st block of Highland Avenue, Muncie, Indiana, right outside the Shaffer Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Some observations we made about the marker would be it's meant to be read walking down the sidewalk. It's perpendicular to the sidewalk / the road. So, like, if you're passing by it, you'll be able to read it in that sort of sense. There's bricks around the base of the marker, alluding to possible donors of the Shaffer Chapel historical marker. Like, there's Marion GM employees and friends. There's Dr. Richard and Dorothy Burkhart. Some BSU mentions in there, the Old National Bank. Just some of those. And some of the constraints with that were that not a lot of people will see it if it's, like, if you're just driving by, you don't have really enough time to read all of it, and, like, there's no, like, indication of where you can read up more about it. So that was one of the constraints we saw with it. As for any physical indications or clues about the historical event, there weren't really any other than probably the stones that were placed around them that, like, had the in memory of. There's no any allusion to the event that happened, mainly because the event actually happened in Marion rather than in Muncie.
Our group concluded that the visuals we would add, given the opportunity, is adding pictures of what the church used to look like, since changes have been made since 2013 at the latest. Having these pictures would better allude to these changes and the church's history. Some other things we would add is better lighting so that the marker is more visible at night, making it more accessible to people at night. And finally, we would add pictures of the men that had been lynched so that people can better visualize their story.
In terms of changes that could improve the marker, first and foremost, the current text is brief and does not provide the viewer much context about the events it's discussing. Brevity isn't bad, but this marker has room for quite a bit more text. Instead of the front and back being identical, both sides of the marker could be utilized to provide more information. A very important element we think needs to be included are Smith and Shipp's names, who are currently referred to as two men. Naming them on the marker would make the story more personal, help viewers connect, and emphasize Smith and Shipp as individuals. More could be done to clarify the importance of Shaffer Chapel in the story, answering the question, why is the marker here? We think that the sentence about it having been a school building could be omitted. This is because the report from the Historic Bureau website mentions that this claim is difficult to verify as true. Also, because this information isn't relevant to the rest of the story, this space could be better used to include key information, such as why Smith and Shipp's bodies were brought to Muncie, because Reverend Johnson was the nearest Black mortician, and why Shaffer Chapel was a rallying point. What were they rallying for or against? The current marker text does not provide a clear picture of the role of Shaffer Chapel in the events following the Marion lynching. Other improvements could be cleaning up the area around the marker, picking up trash, cutting the grass, cleaning the bricks so they're easier to read. And speaking of the bricks, it would also be helpful to have signage indicating the significance of the names to provide context to a viewer. Also, the marker is older than the Shaffer Chapel Historical Museum, but if it were to be modified, it would be great to have some mention of the museum, since there's a great resource for viewers to learn more, literally right around the corner, but many may not know it's there. Lastly, we believe that the site would benefit from some kind of memorial to Smith and Shipp. Their memory deserves to be honored, and while that's not the main purpose of the marker, we did notice that on the other side of the parking lot, there's a nice garden area that hypothetically could be a good place for a plaque or some other kind of memorial specifically dedicated to Smith and Shipp.